Interesting. Can a woman play in the NBA? Just think about that for a moment. Mavs owner Mark Cuban told reporters he would consider drafting Brittney Griner, saying, right now, I'd lean toward yes, just to see if she can do it. Well, not so fast, says UConn women's basketball coach Gino Auriemma. If Brittney Griner tries to make it to an NBA team, I think it would be a public relations thing, and I think it would be a sham. The fact that a woman could actually play right now in the NBA and compete successfully against the level of play that they have is absolutely ludicrous, and not the rapper. Well, Nancy Lieberman, who went to the NBA summer leagues in the 80s, had this to say, quote, there's nothing but unbelievable historical upside. I would do it in a minute, Lieberman said. There is no downside to her trying. We talked about this yesterday, Stephen A., so I'm going to ask you, you've heard both sides. Whose side are you on in this debate?
Well, first of all, I'm on Gino Auriemma's side. As profoundly as I can be. And I hate saying it like that because there's nobody that loves the great Nancy Lieberman more than me. How you doing, Nancy? Love you. Love her to death. But let me tell you something. Gino Auriemma is right on the money. And I don't want it. Listen, let me be very clear because this is dicey territory that I'm going into here, Skip. So let me remind the audience, raised by 5 women, including 4 older sisters, a couple who actually believed they could play. You know what I'm saying? I got a little niece that played high school basketball, all right? Nobody's trying to be misogynistic here. But at the same time, can we stop this nonsense? There is no way that Brittney Griner, nor any woman can play in the NBA on the level of men. Stop. Now, you could find the best woman athlete that's better than a scrub, possibly, maybe. But what I'm saying is, Brittney Griner, being the best female college basketball player out there, you gonna go to the pros? You gonna play against LeBron and D-Wade and Melo and Kobe and Durant and all? Stop. Can we stop this nonsense? And I don't want to hear everybody go to, don't let the Now organization calm down. All you females out there, calm down. I'm simply saying, we all have our place. Brittney Griner is a female basketball player. Cheryl Miller, to me, was the best, okay? You've got great players, female players that can beat people like me. They can beat, other folks. But can you beat NBA dudes? Let's stop that nonsense, please, and show respect where it deserves. These are the greatest players in the world. A female college basketball player who everybody makes a big deal because her fingertips go over the rim and she can dunk does not equate to her being qualified to being an NBA player. Mark Cuban needs to stop that nonsense, and so does my dear, dear friend who I love dearly, the great Nancy Lieberman. Stop it. Just stop it.
I agree with you 100%. I don't think you're over the line with your comments or the tone of your comments. I think they're very fair and balanced. Let's make it clear. Brittney Griner is the most dominating force in the history of women's basketball because she is so tall, at 6 feet 8 inches tall. She is so supremely skilled for her height, and she has such basketball instinct and savvy that it made her the greatest shot blocker in the history of women's basketball, and she has the shot blocking record, men's or women's basketball, with a total of 748 blocks for her career. That's about anticipation as well as length and skill. And yet, Stephen A., the irony here is, if you watch the Sweet 16 mighty upset by Louisville over Baylor, and I did watch it, watched the second half after I saw the score. The irony is that Louisville was the first team all year that said, you know what? We're going to get real physical. We're going to go over the line physical with Brittney. And they did. And they got away with a lot of it. A lot of pushing and shoving, a lot of hands-on. And they held Brittney to 14 points and 10 rebounds and pulled off the shocker of the year in women's college basketball. Now, to Nancy Lieberman, you say she's a dear, dear friend. I know Nancy extremely well. She was my neighbor for 3 years in Dallas, Texas. I watched Nancy play a whole lot of women's basketball, and she was Lady Magic, trust me. I watched her play a lot of basketball against NBA players. I played in a whole lot of pickup games with Nancy Lieberman. I know her game and her skill level, and she was simply as tough and fearless a competitor as I have ever been around in men's or women's sports. So she was not afraid to go play with men. But I must read the rest of her quote to you. If we could put that up on the screen for just a second, Stephen A. From Nancy.
Okay.
I was extraordinarily average on my best days against men. And I was a point guard, so I could stay away from the physicality of the game and still do some of my job, which was IQ passing, running the team. I always had somebody chasing me who was quick, but I wasn't getting knocked over or elbowed everywhere. Brittney Griner is a slender 6 feet 8 inches tall. And as you know, Stephen A. 6'8" in the NBA is a pretty average height. So she's a 6'8" slender post player who plays with her back to the basket and has a real sweet turnaround jumper that no women's college basketball player can stop. But Stephen A., you know and I know what would happen if she tried to shoot that in the face of another 6'8" male player. I'm sorry.
She'd be lucky to average 5. She'd be lucky to average 5 points a game.
And she would be in harm's way because she would be in the midst of elbows and physicality. I think we would agree. It is a man's game. And Nancy says, what's the downside? Well, the downside would be, would she get embarrassed? And I fear she would get embarrassed. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I fear in the end, this is nothing but another Mark Cuban memorial publicity stunt by Mark Cuban.
Listen, let me use it, Skip, and you know how much I love my boxing. Let me use a boxing analogy, okay? You know I love Layla Ali. Known her for years. Skilled big time as a woman. Okay? You're going to go in there against, let's not even think about heavyweights. Let's think about middleweights. Let's think about middleweights. Let's think about Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
Okay.
Let's think about Sergio Martinez.
All right.
Just throw out an average middleweight. What are you going to do against men? See, it's like, listen, women are great. We understand they have a skill set. We understand they've been undermined on far too many occasions, and there's been an absence of appreciation for what they bring to the table. That's why you got Title IX. Women's basketball is fun to watch. Women's tennis, as far as I'm concerned, is far more entertaining than male tennis. I'm tired of seeing Federer and Djokovic.
I love women's golf and women's softball.
There you go.
Yes.
But what I'm saying, when you talk about something that involves physical confrontation against men, it's like let's pump our brakes here. Let's calm down and let's understand. Everybody's got their place. Let's stop this nonsense.
No, Stephen A., you're right about that. You're right about that. You said you didn't want anybody up in arms, and as a woman, I agree with you both. There is absolutely no way, in my opinion, that Brittney could actually compete with the likes of some men in the professional league. And what Nancy said was really, really honest. That's a fair assessment. So yes. I don't believe that anybody should be up in arms. Again, this is a discussion, not necessarily a debate, and I appreciate.
By the way, I didn't see the second part. I didn't see the second part of Nancy Lieberman's quote until you just showed that to me, Skip and Kerry. I didn't know about the second part, which you elaborated on when I made my comment as well.
I understand what Nancy is saying. She's saying from a historical perspective, it would be great. Let's make some edges. But you're saying in terms of actually competing and letting it be fair, not necessarily true. All right, gentlemen. Let's leave it right there. Coming up next.